I submit to you that's fertile ground for us to think about. So we're drowning in information, reaching for knowledge, and we're just totally devoid of wisdom. We, the digital immigrants. Okay, I went to Virginia Tech at 17 years of age. I was given the first IBM PC portable. It wasn't really portable. It was like 42 pounds. It was called a luggable because we actually had to lug it across the drill field. And that was my first introduction to computers. Yesterday, I'm hanging out with my son, and I'm like, I wonder, he's like, Dad, just Google it. He's 6 years old. I'm like, oh, I don't have time. He's like, I'll go look. And I'm going, God, what's his world going to look like? Google's a verb, you know? Are you with me? Now, Kurzweil is controversial. We're here in the bastion of science, but this is a thought experiment. Just listen to Ray talking here at TED Conference.
So let me just end with a couple of scenarios. By 2010, computers will disappear. They'll be so small they'll be embedded in our clothing, in our environment. Images will be written directly to our retina, providing full immersion virtual reality, augmented real reality. We'll be interacting with virtual personalities. But if we go to 2029, we really have the full maturity of these trends, and you have to appreciate how many turns of the screw in terms of generations of technology, which are getting faster and faster, we'll have at that point. We will have 2 to the 25th power greater price, performance, capacity, and bandwidth of these technologies, which is pretty phenomenal. It'll be millions of times more powerful than it is today. We'll have completed the reverse engineering of the human brain. $1,000 of computing will be far more powerful than the human brain in terms of basic raw capacity. Computers will combine the subtle pattern recognition powers of human intelligence with ways in which machines are already superior in terms of doing analytic thinking, remembering billions of facts accurately. Machines can share their knowledge very quickly, but it's not just an alien invasion of intelligent machines. We are going to merge with our technology. These nanobots I mentioned will first be used for medical and health applications, cleaning up the environment, providing powerful fuel cells and widely distributed decentralized solar panels and so on in the environment. But they'll also go inside our brain, interact with our biological neurons. We've demonstrated the key principles of being able to do this. So for example, full immersion virtual reality from within the nervous system, the nanobots shut down the signals coming from your real senses, replace them with the signals that your brain would be receiving if you were in the virtual environment. And then it'll feel like you're in that virtual environment. You can go there with other people, have any kind of experience with anyone involving all of the senses. Experience beamers, I call them, will put their whole flow of sensory experiences and the neurological correlates of their emotions out on the internet. You can plug in and experience what it's like to be someone else. But most importantly, it'll be a tremendous expansion of human intelligence through this direct merger with our technology, which in some sense we're doing already. We routinely do intellectual feats that would be impossible without our technology.
He's not some quack we picked up off the street. I mean, the guy's like an MIT scientist, and if you've read The Singularity is Near or The Age of Spiritual Machines, he takes technical data and just extrapolates. Now, are there issues with that? Certainly. Are there people who don't go with Kurzweil on this? Certainly. He's just opened the Singularity University. A lot of companies are signing up. I'm not advocating one way or the other. This is a thought experiment. But my wife is in developmental psych, okay? So, and I'm a technology guy. So our big question du jour, as Carl knows, because we've talked about this, is should our kids play games? Her argument is there's no literature, because she's academic too, so it's like it's literature wars. There's no real solid evidence that it doesn't kind of rot the kids' brains. And mine is, when Aiden's 27 and Liam's 24, my colleague at Wharton, Dan Hunter, confidently predicts that the majority of their income is going to be generated in a virtual world. Not in this physical meat space, as the kids like to call it. This is meat space. We're in meat space. Meat space is messy. But in the digital context. I just was asked to speak at the state of North Carolina Department of Revenue because they were assuming just because more and more people are moving to North Carolina that their tax revenue base was going to increase. I gave them a talk somewhat similar to this that's saying, oh, lots of people will come here to live because it's a nice place and it's cheaper and there's nice weather, but they're going to be generating the majority of their revenue off the web. And we think internet taxation for web pages was difficult. Think about internet taxation for 3D virtual environments that are their own entity, legal. MySpace is, if you were to do the math, the 8th largest country in the world. That's why Murdoch spent $500 million on it. All you got to do is figure out how to tax the citizens, and you're going to make a whole bunch of money, right? So what are we going to do about my kids? You know, that's what it's all about. We have a digital divide of a different kind. This is not about the haves and the have-nots of technology. It's about the fact that we're all going to be awash in technology very, very soon. There's an explosion of information. There's a hyperinflation of time. How much more do I fit into a minute of mine than my grandfather did walking down Main Street in Yall circa 1935? Think about how many devices we have on us. Think about how many interruptions we have. What's the average number of interruptions in a typical office space? Wired Magazine study. Every 6 minutes. So what we have is the attention span of a ferret on 2 cappuccinos. There's an article in HBO about it. It's called ADT. It's not ADD, but it's ATT. So welcome to my world by virtue of the environment that you're operating in. How many of you schedule think time on your calendars? Actually just block it out so you can secretly stop and say, what the is going on? Right? We've got to get back into that because fundamentally, the computers are going to win the computational side of this. It's the intuition and insight that we have that differentiates us. So why not move in that direction, strategically, from a learning perspective? That's where the high ground is. The rest is commoditization. And you don't want to get into a commoditization war because it regresses to the mean of mediocrity. And that's not what these companies that I've had the pleasure of meeting in Ireland are all about. They get it. Now, guess what? Happy birthday to the web. April 22nd, 1993 is when the browser was introduced to the world. 5,000 days old. Now, listen to Kevin Kelly talk about what's happened in those 5,000 days.
The internet, the web, as we know, the kind of web things that we're all talking about, is already less than 5,000 days old. Okay? So all the things that we've seen come about, starting, say, with satellite images of the whole Earth, which we couldn't even imagine happening before. All these things rolling into our lives, just this abundance of things that are right before us, sitting in front of our laptop or our desktop. This kind of cornucopia of stuff just coming on, never ending. It's amazing. And we're not amazed. It's really amazing that all this stuff is here. Okay? It's in 5,000 days. All this stuff has come. And I know that 10 years ago, if I had told you that this was all coming, you would have said that that's impossible. That's simply, there's no economic model that would be possible. And if I told you it was all coming for free, you would say this is simply, you're dreaming, you're a Californian utopian, you're a wild-eyed optimist, and yet it's here. The other thing that we know about it was that 10 years ago, as I looked at what even Wired was talking about, we thought it was going to be TV but better. That was the model. That was what everybody was suggesting was going to be coming. And it turns out that that's not what it was. First of all, it was impossible, and it's not what it was. And so one of the things that I think we're learning, if you think about like Wikipedia, is something that was simply impossible. It's impossible in theory, but possible in practice. And if you take all these things that are possible, I think one of the things we're learning from this era, from this last decade, is that we have to get good at believing in the impossible.